On today's morning show from WRCO, Joy Kirkpatrick, a farm management outreach specialist, is in to talk a little bit about some upcoming programs. And Joy, we are so glad that you made it over the roads today.
Yeah, just slow and steady.
Exactly. I saw that forecast and I thought, but I knew you're a farm girl.
Yeah.
You're used to this.
Yeah, and I've been in Extension long enough that you drive to the programs, and unless the state troopers tell you not to,
then you got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were on in October, and I don't know if we have the chance to really talk about what you do, but what does your job entail, Joy?
Yeah, so my title is Farm Succession Outreach Specialist, and so that work is all about helping farm businesses with transferring the business. So that would be the farm assets, like the tangible assets, but also we talk a lot about transferring management and decision making as well, because when farm families, when I get a call, a lot of times they're very focused on, do I need an LLC or some sort of corporation, or talking about taxes, right? So the nuts and bolts of succession planning, and they want to make sure that, and this is important, to get those assets over to that next generation in a way that allows them to still be able to farm and minimize taxes and make sure that owner generation has the income that they need as they transition to a different sort of stage of life. But a lot of times they forget that they're not going to be the major decision makers anymore. So that's a big part of what I talk about with farms as well. So I do educational programs, which we'll talk a little bit about today. I develop materials to help farms kind of start those conversations. I think that is, if I want to distill down what I do, is I help farms talk about the things that need to be talked about at the right time, and give them sort of the terminology and the vocabulary to talk about the things that are hard to talk about. One of the things that always comes up, especially if it's a transition, I work with farms that mostly are transitioning to someone that's related to them, a son or a daughter. But there are those outside family transitions as well. And the thing that we talk about, even either of those cases, if there are children in the family that there might be, they want to have, the owner generation wants to have some inheritance transferred to their children, there's always this conversation about what can that be, and yet still allow that person who's trying to run that business to have access to the assets they need to run that business. So the short terminology that we use is what's fair versus equal. So we talk a lot about that when I work with farm families on an individual basis. So I do educational programs, I write articles and put things out into the popular press, and then also work one-on-one with farms when they really want to sit down and have some first conversations. Now, I don't give them a plan after I've had a conversation with them, but what I say is I help them start the conversation, get their information sort of organized, and have really good questions for when they do go to the attorney or their accountant or a financial planner, that they're a little bit more organized, and their time with them can be more effective, efficient, and hopefully cost effective, so that they're not having these sort of circular conversations that sometimes have to happen, right? You kind of know what you want to do, but you don't know what other people are thinking in your operation or in your family. So trying to get everybody on the same page and kind of moving the same direction is what we can do in Extension to help people kind of get on the right track.
Well, you don't necessarily give legal advice, but you kind of advise them in the directions they should go. Though.
Yeah, I mean, even sitting down with farms, what I talk about is it's an educational process. Even if it's one-on-one, it's still education. We do have a farm legal farm law specialist, and she is an attorney. But she always says, when she introduces herself, she says, "I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney." So her role is also educational. She can't tell you, well, not any attorney can tell you what to do. They can ask you what you want to have happen, and then they can give you options. And what we try to do is sort of overview of, what are some first steps that we know from the research we've done and some of the work that we've done over the years. We know those first steps really help farm families and farm businesses get started on that right path.
You've been doing this long enough where I'm guessing you can give them examples and some, I don't want to say, but maybe horror stories too. I mean, where things didn't go quite so well, right?
Yeah, I try to temper those a little bit. There's two reasons that I'm careful about examples, because if the examples are way too technical about like what sort of business structure they had or what other sorts of things that they did are very technical, then people will go to an attorney and say, "I want this particular thing," when it might not fit in their own personal situation. So what works for someone else may not work for you exactly, but it always is good to hear about other people's stories. And I especially like to hear other people's stories about, like, who did you go to for help? Or what were some things that were challenging that surprised you that were going to be challenging? So thinking about what they learned from the process, maybe more so than what they did at the very end, because what they did at the very end might not work for every farm. So I'm a little bit careful about examples, but I do think that those farmers, in general, people love to learn from their peers, and farmers in particular like to learn from each other. So when you think about pasture walks and field days and all those sorts of things, if we can get a panelist of farmers to talk a little bit about what they've done to transfer their farm, that is really powerful for people to hear. I know that a lot of farmers are hesitant to be on that panel because they know that their plan might not have been perfect and it might have been a little bit of a struggle, so they don't want to be put up on a pedestal. But if we can talk about like what their challenges were and how they overcame them, I think that is a really good learning opportunity for others to hear about those struggles, because I think that that's something, one thing that I think is helpful just to talk about it, be on the radio and talk about it, is that a lot of times in this particular topic, farms go through this maybe twice in their lifetimes if they're lucky. When they get the farm or purchase the farm or however it was that they became owners of these assets, that's one time. And then the next time is when they're ready to transfer it on to another family or next generation. So it's not something that they're thinking about every day like they do all those operational things, and they can really just almost in their sleep kind of make some decisions. So this is a little bit tougher topic to get started, and it's so easy to get stalled because they maybe don't know what to do, maybe don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. So then it's easy to set that aside, put that on the back burner, and then get to those day-to-day things that you can see your progress right away. So, I get it. This is crazy, but I like to mow the lawn and do the dishes because I can see that something's done, because in this kind of work, it can take years for a farm family that I'm working with to get through that process. So I get those immediate sorts of dopamine hits of getting something done and seeing those decisions that you've made really make progress. This kind of decision making and planning takes a little bit different sort of mental muscle, and so you kind of have to be ready for kind of a marathon instead of a sprint kind of idea when you're starting to do succession planning. So the thing is, the more we talk about it, more that we talk about some of the basic challenges that the research has shown that a lot of farms may be facing, it helps people realize that they're not unique in a positive way. Other people are struggling with is the farm profitable enough to bring on a next generation? Other people struggle with the idea that if I'm not making the decisions on this farm, can I call myself the farmer? And like that identity, I think that is a key thing that a lot of farmers of that owner generation maybe grapple with a little bit, is that they have been farming 24/7 for decades, right? 365 days a year, 24/7 for decades. And if they haven't thought about what they're going to do when they maybe slow down or step back, it's a really difficult sort of identity crisis that they need to think about. And that's not something that's easy to do.
Mm-hmm. The average age of a farmer in Wisconsin,
I think it's around 57, 58 years old.
Okay.
It might be maybe a little, probably closer to 57. In states that have a lot of livestock, the average age is a little bit younger. When you look at like Iowa or Illinois, where it's mostly cropland and they have all of that technology that they can get in the tractor and just go, you see the ages are a little bit older than what we have here in Wisconsin.
I'm sure it's always a difficult thing, but probably should start thinking about succession before you get toward retirement age, though.
Yeah,
right?
and the longer, the earlier people think about it and start having conversations, if they have children, start having conversations about what is it that they would like what are the requirements for those children to be able to have an opportunity back on the farm. I think that people should have those conversations earlier. Things that I've seen that have been really helpful for families is there have been families that say you need to work someplace else for a period of time to get some experience of working for someone other than your parents. I think that that's a really good thing. And now I know that there are families there could be parents that if they leave, they might never come back. So,
I could see that.
Yeah. But if the farm is something that is attractive, something that they want to do, they'll come back, right? Or they'll ask about it. It's very hard. I mean, I'm saying this first of all, not having children, and second of all, not having a farm. So I know that it's harder than what I'm saying, right? It's easy for me to say the words, but it's really hard for parents to maybe say, go do something else, knowing that they might find that something that more attractive. But if that's the case, keeping them on the farm might not be the best thing for them or the farm. Right? So thinking about what is the best thing for everybody involved is a really important conversation to have. So sometimes it's like they need to have some schooling, they need to work someplace else. I have had farms, I've heard them say, I want my children to come back with a plan of how they can help save money in the farm business or make money. So if there's an additional enterprise that they think that they could use some of the assets that the farm currently has, there's always that push and pull of a new enterprise may take a lot of capital investment. So you have to have that conversation about how much is everybody willing to invest in this new enterprise if this young person is wanting to come back. So it's always, a balance of finances, of skills, of willingness to work together. I think that is another key thing is if it's a struggle every day for people to work together, are you going to want to do that for, 10, 15 years? So really being honest about what you want and how you want that to look. And starting earlier gives you more opportunities to either work through those or find some options that will make it work.
Mm-hmm. And then working off the farm, lots of times you get your benefits. That's another huge thing.
Yeah, thinking about it in that sort of way, and so many of the farms that I'm working with now, off-farm work is what made that farm work. And it's mostly, a lot of times it was for the benefits, health insurance, but also it's just you're taking the pressure of the farm needing to cover all of the family living that might need to for depending on the size of the family and what the expenses are. Everybody's different, but it's rare that I'm working with a farm where if there's a couple in the owner generation that neither of them. It's very rare that neither of them are working on the farm. Usually there's at least one of them working off the farm to help with that. So, farming has always, you needed to have a passion for it, right? Because of just the amount of work and the risk from weather and commodity markets and all of those sorts of things. You have to have a passion for it. And even more so now when you think about most likely somebody is going to have at least a job and a half, if not 2 jobs, to make things work on the farm.
Yeah. And the other thing that comes into play, maybe the children are on the same page, but then you get spouses. And that's probably where sometimes some of those difficulties come in, right?
Yeah, I think that, there's, when you bring a new person into the family and the family business, there's just so many different values and understanding about what's expected, the expectations are there. So having some good conversations about what that would look like is also important. And we know that they don't always happen. Right? It's not the thing you want to talk about when there's a wedding that's going to happen of do we need to have a marital property agreement? Or, if something were to, you don't want to talk about what would happen before they get married if they break up. So that's not very romantic,
no.
But it's very practical. And so having some conversations about what those expectations are can be really helpful. And I think it's really people. I have worked with families for about, on this particular topic for about 25 of I've worked with this all along in my extension career, but pretty specifically for the past 25 years. And I have seen farms where financially it looks like this is a super easy transition that's going to happen because we don't have to worry about a financial struggle of can it carry more families and those sorts of things. But they can't talk openly about some of the things that they need to talk about, and like what you've mentioned of what's it mean when an in-law comes into the mix of things, or what does it mean that there are children, their children who work off the farm maybe won't inherit as much of the assets. Having those conversations, and then so that's the struggle, right? Is that communication piece. And then I've looked at farms and worked with farms where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work financially. It's very marginal on what they can do and bring more people in, but they all were so focused on the same goal and had an open communication sort of style within their family that they've made it work, right? So I think that you really have to have a combination of those things working for you. And if you don't have that now, that's a focus, is start having those kinds of open conversations.
How do you start?
Yeah. Don't do it at Christmas time. That's always...
It could be a New Year's resolution, though, right?
It could be, yeah. That's the way I advertise some of my programs. Start out 2026 as the year that you're going to get this plan together. I think it can be a New Year's resolution. I do think that when I teach programs, I always have this cartoon that has... picture of it looks like maybe the dad of the family carving a turkey, and it says something about, okay, who's ready for a healthy helping of bickering, so it's yeah, there's a lot of, I think that family gatherings around the holidays can be joyous and great. It can also be a little bit stressful. Even in the best of families. And so bringing in a layer of business talk onto some of that might not be the best way to start the conversation. And you might not have exactly the right people in the room, or you might have too many people in the room to have that conversation at those sort of holiday gatherings. But I think it's something that, thinking about making sure, first of all, if there are like a married couple or partnership of some sort of that ownership level. So that could be husband and wife, or some sort of partnership, romantic partnership, or it could be a whole bunch of brothers that all own at that ownership level right now. Making sure that they're all talking and have a good idea about what they think they want to have happen and what their goals are. That's kind of a first step. And so maybe that's who needs to have some conversations together first, and then bringing in that next generation that might already be working on the farm, and then also having a conversation of like, well, does that mean that everybody's spouses are also a part, like at every level, the spouses need to be, I always say, if you can have a conversation with everybody in the room so they're hearing all the same things at once, versus, say, a brother and then him talking with his other brothers and then going home and talking to their partner, and like, the message might get a little bit different. It's like that game of telephone. So having everybody in the room that you think needs to be there to hear those conversations, if you can do that, I think that is a good first step. And I think that for people who feel like maybe they can't do that on their own, having a facilitator come in and maybe have help with that conversation can be really helpful. And I always joke when I meet with farm families, I kind of give my introduction of I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, but we can try to make sure that we have really good questions when we're done with this conversation that you can take to your attorney and your accountant. And then I say, one of the most valuable things that I can bring to the table is that I'm not related to anybody sitting here, so I can bring up the uncomfortable sort of conversations, or ask the questions that will feel awkward, of a sibling saying, when are you going to retire? Or a child saying, when are you going to let go of the reins? So like, I can say, when would you like to step back from all of these decisions, right? And coming from me, that's a more neutral question. And that person, that son or daughter could ask the same exact question. When are you going to be ready to give up all of these decisions? But coming from that person, it could feel different.
Joy Kirkpatrick, our guest, Farm Management Outreach Specialist, and there are a couple of programs coming up we'd like to talk about. We'll do that after the break here on today's morning show. Joy Kirkpatrick is our guest on WRCO. We're talking about farm succession, and you have a couple of programs coming up here in the new year you'd like to talk about. Tell us about Shoebox to Strategy, Joy.
Yeah, so this is the only second time that we've held this particular program, and we're pretty excited about it. The people that were able to take our pilot, we called it a pilot workshop last year, found it really valuable to take this class. And what we're trying to do is help people, when you think about all of the paperwork that a farm has or a family has to organize when you think about estate planning or making any sort of decisions about business succession, it can be overwhelming. So what we're doing is kind of breaking those up into bite-sized chunks, we hope, that we sort of assign people, will organize, find this information and put it all together, and then you've got that. And then in 2 weeks, we'll give you another assignment. And then 2 more weeks, we'll give you another assignment so that you can pull things together. Because if you have a lot of this information that we are trying to help you organize within this Shoebox to Strategy class, if you have that put together in a way that you can just hand it over in a binder, or if we have a spreadsheet that you can put it on, and so then you have like a thumb drive, you can hand that over to the service professionals like your attorney, your accountant, whoever that you're working with, that can really speed up the opportunities that to have you get that work done. And it also might be a little cheaper because you're not asking them to pull things together. Like you don't, that sort of shoebox of stuff that you go in and sit down on somebody's box and say, help me get my life organized. That's what we're trying to do, that we're giving you the tools and the education to really pull that together. And then you'll have that, so then you can, and what's really nice about this particular spreadsheet that we're using for this class is, and we'll help people with helping them input things if they're not super familiar with using a spreadsheet. So I don't want that to scare people off. But the thing about this is it was developed by some people from the Ohio State University Extension. And one of them is an attorney who used to be in private practice for years and years working with farms on estate planning. And the spreadsheet has it all set up so that there's a page that shows, like, if it shows what you own, and then if you want to put like who's going to get that, like the beneficiary for those particular assets, there's a page that shows you can have, like, if it's all your kids, like all your kids listed on this page, and you're saying, well, so-and-so needs this because they're farming, and so-and-so can you take this because that's not a farming asset. It shows kind of the totals of the values. So you can see, like, well, amazingly enough, it's completely equal and everybody will be happy, which probably isn't going to be the case for most people. But you can see, like, oh, wow, if we divide it completely equally, the on-farm kid's going to have to buy his 3 siblings out, and he might not have the equity enough to borrow against to buy out 3 of his siblings or her siblings all at one time. So it kind of puts your ideas about what you might want to do in, kind of overlays that in real numbers, so that you can decide, is that fair? Or are there plans that could make it more fair, or maybe they could be bought out over time so it doesn't put as much pressure on that on-farm child. So it just it's a really nice way. So you get 2 things. You can have that conversation about that fair versus equal, because you're going to have all your numbers sort of laid out there. And then it gets you organized in a way that you can go to those professionals and have a better ability to say, this is everything I own and how I own it, and these are all of the things that you need to know. So help me, and these are the things that I would like to do with my assets. Help me put together a plan. So it gets the farm family more prepared. The other thing is, even if you're not at a point where you're thinking about succession planning, this is one of those things that we all put off. And if something were to happen to a key decision maker or key manager, who only knows, the only one who has the password to certain bank accounts or whatever, this helps get that organized so that your risk from maybe something happening to someone else has access to those really key things that they need to have. So sort of risk management, estate planning, and succession planning all wrapped up into one.
Yes, because a lot of times, like maybe, for instance, the wife does a lot of the financial,
yes.
And the husband has no idea how to pay a bill or whatever.
Right. So. Like what's the plan? What's the strategy? So it helps. Not that we, the farm families still kind of have to do this, but it does talk about, like, what we do is, like, okay, what are the passwords that need to be sort of, somebody needs to know, and how do you have those in a way that they're still safe and protected? We talk a little bit about that particular, like, there's no, like, one way to do it, right? Some people may put them in a notebook and tell whoever needs to know, this notebook is in my locked drawer, and here's where the key is. So or it could be those people who are more techie than I am. There's this one password thing, where you put all your passwords into something and you only have to know one password to unlock the access to all the other passwords. I don't do that. But there are all kinds of ways that you can do that. So I think that this one, when we did the evaluations for the one that we did last year, people felt like it was well worth their time to go through and be able to get their stuff organized. And the thing was that I think being able, so what we do is we meet virtually 3 times, and we do that 2 weeks apart. So our first one's January 30th. It's a Friday from noon to 1:30. And then 2 weeks later is February 13th. 2 weeks after that is February 27th. And then we meet in person on March 13th. So people end up getting to know each other on those virtual ones. People talk about different things that they've done. So there's a little bit of peer-to-peer learning that's happening over those weeks in the virtual sessions. And then everybody gets together and we help. Even on those virtual sessions, we're going to help people with their spreadsheets. If they're trying to figure out where does something go, we can talk through that so that we kind of have some tech support by virtually, and then we'll come together in March and do a little bit more work and have more conversations about that fair versus equal conversation and trying to figure out like what their next steps are from there.
Is this for family members as well, or is it just for the primary owners?
We the way that we have it set up, you can when you register, 2 people can come to the in-person. And we encourage more than one person to come. We really like to have 2 from each farm. Last year, it was mostly couples. So we had couples that would come together. We did have one mother-daughter team. So that was really nice because the daughter was a little bit more experienced with the spreadsheets and things like that. So that really helped. And so it kind of depends on what your situation is. But you can bring 2 people to this for this one registration.
You have an early bird price, I believe, don't you?
Yeah, it's coming up. That early bird deadline's coming up quickly here. It's $175 per farm if you register before December 31st. And then it's $225 per farm starting on January 1st. And the full registration, like the deadline is January 16th. And the reason that the deadline's January 16th, but the program doesn't start until January 30th, is that we want to mail out some materials to people so that they have them. And then we also give some homework assignments by email. So that's why there's that 2-week early, that registration is 2 weeks ahead of the start date. And because we're talking about this on December 29th, and you only got a couple of days, if people reach out to me, I can give them a code that will let them register for that early bird price of $175 even after the January 1st deadline. Probably the best way to reach me is my phone number. So it's 608-263-3485 if you want that discount. If you want to go ahead and register before the 31st, we do have a website that you can find the registration link on go.wisc.edu/shoebox. So it's go.wisc.edu/ and then the word shoebox, all one word there.
Great. We're swinging deals with an extended registration deadline.
Yeah, and only the people that are listening to WRCO get this one.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you were here in the fall, and we were talking about some programs coming up, the Cultivating Your Farm's Future. You have some more opportunities for that event as well, right?
Yeah, we held the fall workshop, which was great. We had a few families join us for that, and now we have one that's starting in February. So it's going to be all the Thursday evenings in February. So the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th, and that's from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at night. This one is a little bit more broad. It is a virtual program again. So, and we do the sort of the homework assignments. So farms get, and you can, for anybody, for any farm that registers, the registration is $150, and you can have as many people from your farm join for that one. And then everybody who you give me their name and information, each of those people will get a learner's guide. So it's really helpful if they have the learner's guide and they have access to the homework assignments as well, and everybody's taking it all at the same time. This one is just kind of hitting the high points of a lot of different concepts that we know are some of the what we call sort of the tension points of succession planning. So we have sort of a communications component, a financial component. We talk a lot about that fair versus equal. And then on the last night, our farm law specialist, Kelly Wilford, talks a lot about, sort of the estate planning issues that you need to consider, and then also some of the business structures and tools that can help with some of the issues that you are trying to address.
So if you have a child, say, living on the coast, for instance, they can be a part of it as well?
Yeah. One time we had a farm that the farm was actually in Grant County, and we had people from Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Indiana, all the way out to Seattle. I think we had 10 people from that one farm who joined the Zoom meeting every night. And so that's, I think the beauty of that is if you do have children or heirs who maybe aren't part of the day-to-day stuff, but it's helpful for them to hear the same thing that the people who are on the farm are hearing. So again, not having to explain things or that telephone kind of thing happening where concepts get a little bit fuzzier. It's really helpful if people want to join in that way. One family that we had that joined in the fall class, there were 3 siblings and a parent, and the one sibling wasn't there in the area, but the parent and the two siblings joined together in one home, and they said that every Sunday, the class was on Thursday night, but every Sunday afternoon, the 3 that lived close together got together and did their homework together. So it was really, I think it's a really helpful way, again, to have, if we give them some structure about what we know can be some of the sticky points, and give them some worksheets, some videos, some things to learn about that topic, and then give them some sort of guiding questions to talk about, okay, what does this mean for our farm? Is really what our goal is for that course.
How do you register for that particular event?
That one you can go to go.wisc.edu/CYFF. So that one is called Cultivating Your Farm's Future. So that's why the last part of that is CYFF. And if people want to give me a call, they can, and that's 608-263-3485. And what we can do is, if they have an email address, I can get that, and then I can send them the links to how to register. If they want to send me an email, that is joy.kirkpatrick@wisc.edu.
And there's a deadline for that one as well?
It is. The registration deadline is the same, January 16th for that one.
Some of the things you talk about, Joy, a will, and estate planning, should you have that done before you talk about succession, or what is your thought on that?
Yeah, I should probably defer that to our farm law specialist. I think that, a will is probably good for almost will, and powers of attorney are good for anybody over the age of 18, because technically a power of attorney for healthcare can help that you designate someone to make healthcare decisions for yourself if you're not able to. And technically, when somebody turns 18, their parents just don't have that right automatically. So I think those, and a power of attorney for finance is if you can't get your bills paid or make those financial decisions for a period of time, you can designate somebody to do that for you. I think those are really important to have, whether you're in business or succession planning. Everybody needs to have those. And then a will, at least a will gets you, like, if you can, that helps it helps things go to where you want them to go, even though you might not have like the absolute plan ready to go. So I think that can be something, and you can always change your will, and you can always change your estate plan to something a little bit more detailed, more permanent, as you get closer to knowing what you want to have happen with those assets. But a will is kind of a backup.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you can change your succession plan as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's one particular kind of trust that's a little harder to change once you've put that together. But yeah, you can change your I think the idea about succession planning, if you start early enough, and you can have some flexibility of like, okay, we know that this particular person wants to be a part of our business, but we don't know. We have, maybe 2 or 3 other kids that are a little bit younger. They don't know what they're going to do. What's some language or some ideas or concepts that we can build into the plan that talks about, like, is there an opportunity for them? Is the farm, big enough? Is there an opportunity for the farm to grow? Really thinking about like what that looks like, because I mean, being the youngest of 7, I know the idea of like, well, you know what? I came a little bit late to be a part of any sort of succession plan for the size of farm that we had. So of course, I do something else, but they always joke about like the oldest son got the farm, the second son became a preacher, all of those sorts of things. That didn't happen in my family, but it's just the reality of the farms may not be big enough these days, and there's not the opportunity to buy the neighboring farm for all of all of your children have farms surrounding that home farm. That just is not the reality of the way that people farm today, the way that families make decisions about what they want to do for careers, and also the land prices. Just it would make that would be really hard for everybody to be able to afford that. So, but if you think about, if you want to give your other children any opportunities, let's say that child that comes in, if he or she wants to leave, there's some opportunities for the other kids to maybe, buy or come in or whatever. There's some ways that you can put some flexibility into that plan.
I think last time too, you talked about, for instance, maybe this portion of the farm, maybe this 40 acres could go to this particular child. Those kind of things.
Yeah. If there's property that's not as necessary for the farm, it's always hard to think about breaking up the land, but if there's ways that you can make it so that all your kids don't own it all together, that can be helpful sometimes. Just it kind of depends on your goals.
Are we still saying the same number of century farms that we used to? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I don't keep up on those. I think that the state fair does that.
Yes.
The Wisconsin State Fair is the one that takes care of that, and I haven't been keeping up on that.
That'd be interesting to follow.
Yeah.
Always good stuff, Joy.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
You were telling me you remember your very first WRCO interview.
Oh my gosh, yes. I started my job at the Richland County Extension Office as the dairy and livestock agent on September 1st, 1993. And then the county fair started, I think, the very next day. And Ron Fruit interviewed me live on my my second day of extension work.
You were thrown in, weren't you?
Yeah, and of course, he made it super, super great.
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sure he did. All right, well, thanks for coming in, and good luck with those upcoming, and come back and see us again as well,
I will,
Joy.
yes.
You bet. Joy Kirkpatrick, Farm Management Outreach Specialist, joining us on today's morning show.